is it time for Caribbean countries to move to a single currency regime? That means one single currency for the entire Caribbean. Now, I've actually done a video on this before, but I'm going to use this one to go in a lot deeper on the topic. Now, a lot of you is going to ask the question, why? And I'm going to get into that. But I think it's actually more important for us to understand how a lot of Caribbean currencies currently work. So, here I have a chart with basically all the Caribbean countries and their currency. Now you can see that 10 of these currencies are what is considered floating currencies and 15 of them are fixed currencies. Now the difference between these aren't really complicated. A floating currency is a currency where the exchange rate is basically determined by the free market, and a fixed currency is one that is determined by the government. Now here we have, let's look at the Barbadian dollar for example. You can see it says 2 BBD equals 1 USD. All this is saying is that every 2 Barbadian dollar will always give you 1 US dollar in value. And this won't change. Tomorrow it will be the same, the next 3 months it will be the same. So this is a fixed currency with a 2-to-1 ratio. If you look at the Bahamian dollar, 1 BSD is equal to 1 USD. So it's basically the same thing, and all this is saying is this a 1-to-1 ratio. So both of these are fixed currency. Now if we look at the Jamaican dollar, you see it says float. Why? Because it's always changing. Tomorrow it can be 1 USD equals 150 Jamaican dollar, and then a couple months later it can be 1 USD equals 155 Jamaican dollar. So that's the difference between a floating currency and a fixed currency. So we have to ask ourselves now, which one would we use in our single currency Caribbean? So here I have a demonstration, and this is basically a country that is experiencing an economic downturn, and it's on a floating currency, and as you can see the currency is currently going down. But this can actually be a good thing, because now a lot of goods and services will be artificially cheaper in this country. Now that can incentivize others to buy from the country, invest in the country, and also visit this country. And all of that economic activity will help stabilize back the economy. Now, in a fixed currency regime, let's say the same thing is happening, but the currency is strong. Well, this can be quite a problem for this country, because now you're saying you have a strong currency, but your economy is not reflecting that. And it will be harder to incentivize people to visit, invest, or even buy from your country, because it's just as expensive as goods and services from other countries with a stable economy. So you can see the disadvantage with a fixed currency regime. Now, I don't want to just paint the fixed currency as a bad thing, because honestly, for a small country with a small population, a fixed currency make a lot of sense. It don't make sense for a small country to use a floating currency. As a matter of fact, that would likely work against them. So a fixed currency for a small country with a small population, a fixed currency is the way to go. Unless that country has a lot of natural resources, a fixed currency is the way to go. But for our one currency regime for the Caribbean, honestly, you want something that can move up, you want it can move down. You want that flexibility. You don't want to fix it to anything that you're stuck on. So you really want that flexibility. So the win for me, obviously, is the floating currency. Now, let's go back to the why that I mentioned in the beginning. And I'm going to talk about the why by talking about the benefits of having one currency across the Caribbean. So, the first one and the biggest one to me is just the easy flow of money. Like, if I wanted to send $100 to my cousin in Trinidad, I actually don't know if that is possible. If he wanted to send me $50, I don't know if that is possible. I do know I can send 500, 100, or even a $20 to the US. So what that is basically telling me is that it is easier for capital to leave our region than it is to stay within our region. And that is actually a huge problem. I think some companies are currently having issues with getting money out of Trinidad right now. So that should not be a problem in 2024 for Caribbean countries. There should be greater integration between countries, especially when it comes to money. And that is why I just said having a single currency for the region just makes so much sense. Also, tourism would benefit a lot. You know, they'd be able to change their currency one place and just spend in all the different countries with the one currency. And personally, this one is for me. Honestly, I just like to see one stock market for the entire Caribbean. One very liquid, robust stock market. Honestly, I think it would be a game changer for the region, because it doesn't make sense for some small countries with a small population to have a stock market, because even if it's even a 500,000 population, only a portion of the population is actually going to invest, so it's still not enough. One stock market for the entire Caribbean is a game changer. Now let's talk about the problems. Now there are a lot of problems that we can nitpick on. There's a lot that I can find, but the biggest one I've currently identified, if you see other problems, big problems that is worth mentioning, then let me know in the comments. But the big one that I've identified currently is that larger countries just carry more weight when it comes to the currency. Remember, I said we'd be on a floating currency. So what this means is that, let's say the smaller countries, their economy is not doing so great. However, the big country's economy is perfectly fine. In this case, this would not affect the currency any at all. Like, it probably wouldn't even move. And if it moves, it's probably a few basis points. But it wouldn't move that much. It would not affect the currency. And remember, I said you want the currency to be able to go down at times to help bring up back the economy. Well, in this case, these countries would be in some problems. But my counter argument to this is that these countries are already on fixed currencies. So even if they were in this situation right now, they still would not be able to affect the currency. They still wouldn't be able to affect the exchange rate, the borrowing rate. They still can't change none of that because they're on a fixed currency. Versus with the Caribbean currency, at least they will have some say, right? Because when I think about control, I'm thinking about having something similar to what the Federal Reserve have in the United States. So this is basically what they call a dot plot. It's just a fancy name, but these dots that you see are just board members voting. So these would be countries voting on where they want the currency base rate to be. So this is just they're voting right here at 5% in 2024. For 2025, they're voting at 4%. For 2026, most of them are right here. And in the long run, most of them are right here. And we could have something similar in the Caribbean. And this would basically give every country a voice in where we want the currency to be. So that's a solution right there. But as I said, the larger countries carry more weight. So in the case where the larger countries are experiencing issues with their economy, this would likely bring the exchange rate down on the currency. This would likely devalue the currency by a lot, actually, depending on how bad the economy is. But these larger countries would have more effect on that currency than the smaller countries. And as I said, that mismatch can cause issues and friction, but I still think it is better than what we currently have, right? So you have to choose the best of both worlds, and I think this is the better of the both. It just comes with more benefits than negatives. There are more positives than negatives when the Caribbean goes to one currency, goes to a single currency regime, everybody just using the same currency. Yes, there will be challenges. There will be things that pop up that we weren't anticipating, but as I said, there are going to be negatives, but the positives outweighs the negatives. Anyways, that's my presentation on if the Caribbean were to move to a single currency regime, everybody on one currency. I did a video of having the Caribbean as one country, And honestly, between these two, if I was forced to choose, this is the one that I would land on. I think this would actually have a greater impact than having the Caribbean as one country, because I can understand people want to retain their national identity, but with the currency, it's just money, man. Like, this is just the better system. Anyways, let me know how you feel about this. If you have any ideas about it, yeah, man, just let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed it, you can subscribe. That would be a huge help, and stay tuned for more.